The genealogy website I joined didn't let me list my wife unless I listed myself as husband or put one of us in the father category for our children. No space for adoptees here either. I spent ages trying to figure out a way to represent having more than one set of parents. I try adding my half-biological siblings and sneaking my birth parents in through the back door. We are not legible here. This self-reflexive exploration of family making at the intersection of legitimacy and power draws on ethnographic research with over 100 lesbian mothers across a broad range of racial ethnic identities.
Strangers like to get all in our faces, asking how we got our kids or what their race is. Heterosex does not define the realness of our kid. Biology has never been the only key to origin. Public stories call us illegit, not natural, they claim. The scaffolding of power hides itself and rigs the game. It's the scaffolding of power that hides itself and rigs the game.
The scaffolding of power
that hides itself and rigs the game. Kids come into families lots of different ways: birth, adoption, step-parent, surrogate, fertility craze. One side of public stories say queer parents are just wrong. Boys need a father figure and the girls a femi-mom. Critiques of welfare moms and queer moms sound the same. The scaffolding of power hides itself and rigs the game. The scaffolding of power hides itself and rigs the game.
The scaffolding of power
that hides itself and rigs the game. Love makes a family is one response to it, but power writes the stories and the state says who's legit. Bio versus love makes a tidy story frame, but the scaffolding of power hides itself and rigs the game. The scaffolding of power hides itself and rigs the game.
The scaffolding of power
hides itself and rigs the game.
In predominantly white settings in the Midwest, people say things like, "Look at that red hair, we can see who your mother is." Do they see my wife as some random black woman standing near us? Or do they not see her at all? In other spaces, people look at us and see a family. We learn to see families through Fibonacci-like patterns, templates for legitimate citizenship, balanced with pairings of straight, same-race, gender-specific opposites. Unless you prune them to conform, trees don't actually have that structure. Roots are tangled, branches unpredictable, sprouts pop, leaves fall. We can't call trees or families natural in any pure sense. Both are pruned and regulated by their interactions with the parts of the world in which their roots take hold. At the time of our interview in 2007, Ray was a single mother of two living in Des Moines, Iowa. She tells a story about interacting with the social welfare system when she was pregnant and unable to legally marry her girlfriend.
So yeah, you had to wait 60 or 90 days. And so in the short term, I had to get like Medicaid or Title 19, whatever it was, just to supplement till I got my insurance kicked in. So here I am about to give birth, and I have to go and sign up for, for state aid medical. And the guy, bless his heart, was as cool as he could possibly be. But again, I wasn't gonna lie. I'm like, I know who the biological sperm donor is, but this baby doesn't have a father. Like, you have to fill out all the paperwork. I'm like, he's got another mom. And I don't really know how to do your paperwork. And I'm not being difficult. I'm just being honest. I'm not going to lie. I'm also not going to name someone who has said, I don't want to be a dad. I'm just giving you this stuff because I know it'll work, And so the guy says to me, He's like, you know what? That's cool. He's like, okay, but if you're in whatever your benefits or whatever, if you're ever audited or whatever it is that they do to see if you really should be getting benefits, you're gonna have to come up with something. He says, and the best thing I can tell you is for you to say that you were really wasted one night and you had sex with multiple men and you don't even remember who they are and you got pregnant. And so when he said that, I was just kind of like, really?
These are the stories that keep getting told. We'd rather hear stories of black women having one-night stands than acknowledge the existence of black lesbian mothers.
Culturally insensitive.
Than acknowledge the legitimacy of multiple family forms.
Insulting isn't even the right word.
We barter in stories. The social workers need a life story to go along with their adoption inspection. The Medicaid man needs a story to fit into the state's box. A story of black women's lives, written through the hackneyed stereotypes of wantonness and economically irresponsible motherhood. Ray tried to tell her story.
It's this great organization I worked for, but there was a like 60 or 90 days before the insurance kicked in. You know, anytime you get a new employer, that happens. And so in the short term, I had to get like Medicaid or Title 19, whatever it was, just to supplement till I got my insurance kicked in.
We barter in stories.
To say something like that to a single black woman applying for Title 19.
Ray tried to tell her story, but it didn't fit the narrative structure the state has available for women of color who are not legally attached to men. Hoe, harlot, Jezebel, tramp, slut, it's welfare queen, or nothing.
I call her Great Aunt Julia, in resistance to the horrors of enslavement I find in my family history. We thought we were Northerners. Then I learned my great-great-grandfather and his brother were the only members of their prominent slaveholding family to join the Union cause. Wilson Miles Carey conveyed by deed of trust 3 slaves, Sally and Charlotte, 2 Negro girls, and Julia, a mulatto girl, to his son-in-law for the use and benefit of his daughter on December 24th, 1813. Christmas gifts to his daughter. Was Julia his daughter too? Did he send her away to remove the reminder for his wife that he increased their wealth by raping and impregnating enslaved women? Virginia law dictated that the race of the child followed the race of the mother. The children Massa fathered with his slaves were legally black and enslaved like their mothers. Who was Julia's mother? How did he justify his barbaric behavior? Did he tell himself she wanted it? Did he know her name? Or did he just think of her as Jezebel? It seems my family's been passing as white for generations. In the interstitial spaces between stories of white pedigrees, I find my multiracial ancestors. Years ago, when I asked her about our family history, my grandmother told me Aunt Bird and Aunt Belle always said we were related to Lord Fairfax, but he didn't have any children. And she dismissed the idea. It turns out we're related to a handful of U.S. presidents, the British monarchy, and Pocahontas. My children are thrilled by this news. Then I throw the wrench in their excitement. But we're not biologically related because I was adopted. I didn't find Great Aunt Julia in the legitimate family tree, but in the Fairfax County, Virginia property transfer records. I reclaim her and the unnamed ancestors left out of the legitimate lineage, to which I also do not fully belong. We are grafted trees. Once an apple branch is made part of a peach tree, it's nurtured by those roots as it grows. My grandmother told me once that of all her children and grandchildren, I was the one most like her. My 12-year-old self was confused. How can that be? I was adopted. She didn't miss a beat. Oh, I always forget that.